sources, so they can charge more for their advertising. So got to mention smartphones, eh? So smartphones, so my new phone, £25 a month, on my latest plan, has a GPS inside it. It's got a compass inside it, it's got an inclinometer inside it, another angle inside. These phones are now very powerful. It means that I've got applications with me that if it knows where I am, it can present information to me that is relevant to where I am. So it might be where the nearest petrol station is. This morning it was how to get my way here because I got lost coming down from the hotels in Osborne Road, wherever it was. Or it could be a tourist application that is taking a lot of different things into account and presenting information that it thinks will be of interest to me. They reckon that 15% of all the applications on iPhone Store are now location enabled, and that by 2015 the location application market on iPhone will be about £13 billion. So this is no small fries, eh? There's a lot of stuff changing very quickly, and it's worth a lot of money. A lot of people are getting involved, but they're not the typical GIS spenders. It's a lot of newcomers. These guys all carry mobile phones with GPSs in. And not just can they use them to figure out where the nearest bar is, but because we live in a Web 2 world now, we can also feed back and contribute back with this information. So as we spoke about OpenStreetMap, but here's another example. It's the European Union beach quality data. So you can go to on the web and see what your beaches are like nearby and how the European Union has rated them. If you agree with them, you can actually send that back. I agree with that. That is a great beach. Some people might not always agree, so they might say back, no, I think that's a lousy beach. But it means that the control of the information has been more democratized. People are able to participate and provide their feedback. It can be scary, but it can also be an opportunity to us as well. A word on the government's open data program. Just this year, story goes, as I heard it, that Gordon Brown, seeing the writing on the wall, had lunch with Tim Berners-Lee and asked Tim, what's the next big thing, Tim? And Tim says, well, Gordon, I think the next big thing is not a network of interconnected documents, which is what the internet currently is. I think it's a web of interconnected information. Gordon said, champion, what do you need? And Tim says, I need your data. Story has it that that's where it all began. So this year, at this point, there were 4,000 UK government data sets available on the web. Not available on the web as a PDF document, but available on the web as a web addressable structured data source, which means it can be interrogated over the web using a language called Spatial, and it means it can be, if you interrogate it, you can then pull out the bits that you need, relate it to other bits of data, and create new applications. Now when they did that, which the new government has also adopted, because people are kind of stuck, they have to do that, the government last month announced a new open government license that says, yes, honestly, you can take this data and do what on earth you like with it. And people are, if you again go to their open gov site, people are making all sorts of applications based upon relating this information together and providing value. Providing value that the government wasn't doing before, but there were people with new tools and new data, and they're thinking of all sorts of new ways to present this information. One of the most talked about applications that came up early was the Asbarometer on the iPhone. The Asbarometer just simply took a spreadsheet of where Asbos were and plotted them on a map. So you can see in your neighbourhood where the Asbos are, and it can tell you how your neighbourhood compares to other neighbourhoods. Very simple piece of information, but presented in a very interesting way. Maybe that wasn't the greatest example. It shows the ingenuity that people are going to. What is this? This is our web of interconnected information. Now we mentioned that everything is spatial in nature, and because everything is spatial in nature, it helps us integrate. So a lot of the most popular websites are these map mashups. Simply by presenting different themes of information relative to one another, people are able to highlight phenomena. If they tie into other structured sources, they can, such as DBpedia, which you may have heard of, you may not. DBpedia is basically a structured version of Wikipedia. So machines can interrogate the information and use it to present with other forms of information to create these new applications. Open source software. There is now lots and lots of good quality open source software available free of charge, which means that there's a lot more people that have access to GIS type tools and can do GIS type things than there were previously when you had to spend lots of money on proprietary software. So not just do we have a lot of data available, in all of a sudden, in very recent times, we also have lots of tools and lots of capable people of using those tools to do things with it. So where next? Well, this is my take on where next. I think it's worth considering embracing the big society data concept. So if you're a government organisation, you might consider releasing your data under the Open Government Licence for others to take and do stuff with, stuff that maybe you don't have the time or the money to do things with. Why not tap into a resource that is free and willing and able to do other things too? But also, because the Web 2 world is a two-way street, considering how to foster local crowdsourcing. There may be information that will be very valuable to your operations, but you don't have the time and money to go out and collect it. But other special interest groups might be interested in doing that for you. So simple things such as where are nasty cases of dog fouling or graffiti, where are there problems if you're in a wheelchair and you can't access places, where do you feel unsafe working at night. These are types of things that there may be interest groups that will go out there and map the data. It's now freely available on the web for anyone to use, including yourselves to use. And it's effectively for free. And it's engaging with people rather than dictating, so it's a much more inclusive approach. We've got to consider the use of cloud-based services as well now, because you may have a big database with a lot of reference information in, which are just displayed in the background. But just to maintain that, even though it's not very clever, just to maintain it requires a server, it requires licenses, it requires administrators to do things with it, you've got to refresh it. There's a lot of work has to be done just to hold a reference data set. If that's available on the web and be acquired as a service and just used in your application in the background, that may be a cheaper way to go about it. And in fact, you may end up with more current data because that service provider's got an incentive to keep it up to date so that they're the best source. So you may end up with a better source of data through a cloud-based service. But it isn't just data, functionality as well can be used on the cloud. A simple example would be if you wanted to route a pizza delivery van somewhere, then one option will be, well, I'm going to buy all of the streets data, I'm going to buy a big server, I'm going to buy some big software, I'm going to configure it all, so when an order comes in, I can route my pizza guy the quickest way there. But if I can get that as a service on the web on a pay-per-use, that takes a whole pile of pain away. Now, as time goes by, very quickly, I think we're going to see a lot more services of that type coming up. So it may be that if you're maintaining a big pile of data for a very particular purpose, it may be that you can think about how could I use a cloud-based service to provide that cheaper and maybe even at a better quality service. And of course, in this Web 2 world, I think we've got to think about, as our data is making its way out there and being used, how can we make it more usable in the way that we naturally engage with it? And I think that the way that we naturally engage with data is very often through a search engine. Even if we know where our data is, even if we bookmark a page, chances are we still Google it anyway, because it's quicker. So if people are going to engage in that way, if that's going to be the primary form of engagement with information, then why not tag information with things that enable the search engines to locate where it is? So simple things like place names and postcodes will do wonders to help the search engines find your data and relate it to other pieces of information. Any change though requires a business case. Last week the AGI in London held a geoeconomics summit. Mark was present at the conference. All of the information there, all of the talks that talked about how do you go about presenting a business case, which is notoriously hard in the GIS world, but what are some good practices for doing that? And what are some concrete examples of cost-benefit studies? They are all available and they're all open on the AGI website, which you're free to go and take a look at. Finally, rumour has it that the world has changed very little for the fishermen on the Nile over the last 2,000 years. Just business as usual for these guys. But I'm willing to bet these guys are all carrying GPS-enabled mobile phones today, and if they aren't carrying the data, I bet they are in a few years' time. The world's changing very quickly. Right, thank you very much. I'm afraid that I'm kind of like Mike. I'm going to dash back and see my boys in Cockermouth tonight, so I'm happy to take any questions before I leave. Yeah.
I think you're safe to escape.
All right, thanks so much, guys.